Hi, boys and girls. I'm back with some more Wild Robot today. We are beginning on chapter 32. Can you believe how far we are? It's titled The Old Barn. Long ago, Hilltop Farm was a very different place. The original farmers grew vegetable gardens and fruit orchards, and they raised chickens and sheep and goats. The farm had changed a lot since then, but there were still signs of its past. Low stone walls lined some of the fields. A rusty tractor sat in the weeds, and hidden within a densely wooded grove was the old barn. The barn hadn't been used in generations. Over the years, trees had quietly grown up around it, and moss had spread across its roof. But the barn was still strong and solid, and Roz wanted to take a look inside. The big barn door screeched along its rails. "Hello?" said the robot, peering into the darkness. "Is anyone here?" A mouse squeaked and scurried out of sight, and then Roz had the barn to herself. She stepped through the doorway and switched on her headlights. The vast interior was crisscrossed with thick wooden beams. Stairways and ramps led up to lofts and platforms. Lanterns hung from hooks on the walls. Old-fashioned farm equipment lay here and there. The barn still had the faint smell of farm animals, even though none had lived there in ages. A large trunk sat on a wood table covered in dust. Roz carefully opened the lid and examined its contents. Ooh, do you wonder what's inside? Maybe, just maybe, it's something that can help Roz to escape. What do you guys think? Inside, a collection of farming magazines, a pair of leather gloves, a pencil nub. And then she noticed a very small journal. The name, Cyrus Sharif, was elegantly scrawled across its cover. The pages were filled with his handwritten notes and hand-drawn diagrams about raising livestock and growing crops and building barns, about working the land with the help of strong animals and simple machines. Cyrus Sharif had also jotted down his thoughts about the long history of farming. He believed that the modern world owed its entire existence to ancient farms when early humans first started growing their food. Those farms were small and primitive, but they supported villages, which then became towns and then became cities. The writings were so wise and insightful that Roz read the journal from cover to cover. By the end, she almost felt as if she knew Cyrus Sharif, whoever he was. The journal was a treasure, and she tucked it into a pocket of her tool belt for safekeeping. You remember the tool belt that Jad and Jaya gave to Roz? Chapter 33, The Autumn. Remember, autumn is another word for, that's right, fall. Autumn colors were sweeping across farm country. The lush greens of summer faded into reds and browns. Crops were harvested, leaves fell away, and the landscape turned stark and gray. On Hilltop Farm, the cows were grazing on what remained of the pasture grass, while the herding machine hovered nearby. The field machine was preparing the fields for winter. The drone circled the farm several times a day, but there was less to report in the autumn. Although Jaya and Jad were busy with school, they always made time for Roz. The children never, ever grew tired of listening to the robot stories, and they never grew tired of sharing their own stories. Sounds like you guys. I miss those stories, by the way. The bees and the mice and the deer and the frogs and the raccoons and the squirrels and the snakes were all getting ready for cold weather. So too were the birds. The owls spruced up their nest. The crows stockpiled acorns. The swallows were still swooping over the farmland, but they would soon be leaving for winter. And any day now, other migratory birds would begin passing through on their long journeys to the south. Oh, maybe Brightbill. Maybe Brightbill will come by. Chapter 34 is titled The Delighted Geese. A flock of geese had just landed at Hilltop Farm. It was the first flock of the autumn migration. These geese floated on the pond, cleaning their feathers and nibbling on weeds, but they all stopped what they were doing when Roz waved and said hello. The robot never forgot a face, and she was certain she didn't know any of these geese, but they seemed to know her. Before she even introduced herself, the lead goose squawked, "Is your name Roz?" The robot stared at the geese. "Yes, it is." "And you can speak the animal language?" The answer was obvious, but Roz politely said, "Yes, I can speak the animal language." "Do you, by any chance, have a goose for a son?" "Yes, I do," said Roz. "His name is Brightbill." At that, a voice blurted out, "These stories are true." And suddenly the flock was smiling and fluttering over to the robot. When the commotion settled down, the leader explained, "All along our migration, we've heard rumors of a robot who can speak with animals, who has a goose for a son, and who is trapped on a farm. That sounded ridiculous to us, but yet, here you are." The flock was absolutely delighted to meet our robot. They lounged around the pond for a couple of days, chatting with Roz whenever she came by. And then they continued flying south to their wintering grounds. Another flock of geese arrived, and the same thing happened all over again. Roz welcomed them. They were delighted to meet the legendary robot. And then the flock continued south. Then it happened again. Do you see this pattern, boys and girls? The story has been shared over and over again, and everyone has learned about Roz's famous being. Before long, the coming and going of delighted geese was just another part of Roz's autumn routine. Straggling behind the others, as usual, was Wingtip's flock. Remember that one from the beginning? When Roz saw them splashing onto the pond, she felt something like hope that they might have news of her son. Sadly, these geese had no news to report. And as the flock took off and left Roz behind, she began to wonder if she would ever see Brightbill again. Chapter 35, The Memories. Roz still continually dreamed of escaping, of going home, of reuniting with Brightbill. But her dreams were starting to feel impossible. She was losing hope. No, don't lose hope, Roz. Don't ever lose hope. Was it time for the robot to accept her new life and forget her old one? Forget? Roz was troubled by that word. You see, her computer brain remembered every detail of her life on the island, and it hurt to think she might never make it back there. However, the robot could always forget. She could erase her old memories. Do you think she should do that, boys and girls? Do you think she should erase her memories of her life before? Would that make it easier or harder? It would be like they never happened. The heaviness she now felt would vanish. But without her memories, who would she be? No, Roz wanted to remember her old life, which was good because someone from her old life was about to appear. Oh my gosh, boys and girls. Who from her old life would be about to appear? Make a guess. I want you to make a guess. Let's think. Who was in her old life? Of course, Bright Bill. Who else? Maybe one of the beavers? Or some of the other birds? Or the raccoons? Who could it be? Who do you think it is? Take a guess. All right, this is where I have to pause because I want to hear your guesses. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. By the way, number corner's coming, so stay tuned. Miss you guys.